I want to talk about Death of a Nation. I'm going to do a movie review. This is a very rare movie review. I saw it last night. It's Dinesh D Souza's new film that's based off his books, I believe, The Big Lie and Death of a Nation. It's a very, very interesting video. I went to the premiere, a lot of cool people there. I met Brandon Tatum, Brandon Straka, Diamond and Silk were there. I didn't see them. A lot of rock stars, a lot of cool people. And first off, I want to say the vibe was totally all love. Tommy Lauren was even there. It was a lot of mix of Republicans and conservatives, of course. But really cool vibes. A lot of gay people there, a lot of people dressed up in very like outlandish, super gay outfits, and everyone's having a good time. I mean, every race, every gender, all religions. Like, it wasn't this big like racist gathering as they would try to say it was. The energy was so good there, and I really think liberals and progressives need to watch their energy. I'm big on energy, even over politics. Energy and like the law of attraction and the universe. I'm a hippie in that sense, where watch your energy, because when you point the finger, it never makes you look good. You got to bring that energy, and I think conservatives are finally embracing this energy. They're not being so hateful. They're not so... Okay, sorry, it froze a little bit. They're not being hateful or judgmental, and they're letting pretty much anybody in. It's not like anti-gay anymore. So the vibes were great, the people were great, and a lot of diversity there for sure at the event. The actual movie, it's talking about Donald Trump and Abraham Lincoln, and also Nazi Germany, Mussolini, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and it's really expelling a lot of myths. And you could debate this to the day. I wasn't born in the 1920s, so I don't have eyewitness, but reading history, I do realize that they're flipping a lot of things that happened. And Dinesh D Souza is trying to point out from the beginning of the film to the end of the film that the Democratic Party was actually the racist party. And in history, I mean, it's just true. You have the Democratic Party founded the KKK. This is all in the film. You have Abraham Lincoln. He freed the slaves according to U.S. history. He was a Republican president shot by an actor, John Wilkes Booth. So it's like Republicans freed the slaves. Republicans didn't start the KKK. The Democratic Party started the KKK. The Democratic Party also voted down almost every civil rights law. It's like it was always Republicans. Even, I believe, the senator, you could check me on this fact. This wasn't in the movie. I just know this because I researched it and I couldn't believe it. I believe it was senator was the position, but the first black Republican senator was in the 1880s or 1890s. The first black senator for the Democratic Party wasn't until 1993. Like I said, the years might be a little off. I believe it's senator. Look it up. I was baffled. I was like, that's really true. I mean, you look up the founders of the KKK party, it's hard to say that there's evidence otherwise. But with the media, they control so much power that they could shut down anything and say anything's not true or not. And ironically, like I said, with liberals and progressives, how they're always doing like certain things in a line, it's the same people that are saying that's not true that are trying to tear down these racist statues. It's like, yeah, in theory that sounds good. It's all, oh yeah, tear down the racist statues. But it's like history manipulation. It's like, oh no, the history's not true. Let's tear the statue down. It's like, let's leave it up, because maybe that statue shows some stuff about you that you don't want us to see. And I'm not saying that's 100% true for these statues, but it is very interesting to me that the people that want to tear down the statues are also the same people that are manipulating history. And LBJ, Lyndon something Johnson, I want to say Baines, but LBJ, the president, got along with Mussolini. This is all in the film, saying that they got along, they had similar strategic values, and it's not hard to see. I'm not saying socially, we've never gotten to that point in the United States, luckily, but it's hard not to see the comparisons from a lot of these regimes like Mussolini and even Nazi Germany to leftist ideology. And I'm not saying people are that mean yet, but I've said this for months, like Dinesh D Souza said in his film, and I agree with it, is socialism and Nazism is not that different. As far as like, yes, they were extreme and they were like, we need to kill people and steal their stuff, but the ideology, the governmental ideology behind it, you could read, what Hitler had in his agenda, read it at the Democratic National Convention or a progressive organization without all the negative stuff about the Jews and other people, and they'd probably cheer for it because it's the same structure. I'm not saying socially, I'm not saying aggressively, but that structure of Nazi Germany was socialist. It just was. National Socialist. He was a nationalist socialist who was very extreme, eugenics, kill people who have disabilities. The Jews are greedy, the bankers. So he had but his governmental policies, he was more extreme than any Democrat or progressive today, but those policies, what allowed him to rise and conquer and have a lot of power, is socialism. Same with Mussolini. He got along with LBJ because they have similar ideologies. Promise the world, hey, you're going to get better health care. You're going to get environmental help. These are things that I agree with. Don't get me wrong. But this is what Hitler did, and this is what Mussolini did. They took total control. And I'm not saying the right wing is perfect, but when you think about taxes and structure, when you go too far right, you turn into anarchy, because too far right means no regulations, no taxes, and that can be anarchy if you go too far. And what would happen in anarchy? You'd probably get a dictator, because when there's no laws and rules, some big giant, the biggest alpha male, will come through and take over the world because there's no law and order. So that's too far right. And when you go too far left, you get fascism and communism. Communism and fascism is not on the right. That's a lie. Authoritarianism can be on the right. A dictator could be on the right. But you're not going to find communism and fascism on the right. It's always going to be on the left, because think about what the right wing wants. Even Donald Trump, is he a fascist? Of course not. I mean, he's chopping up regulations. He's calling out the government agencies who have been running the show for decades. He's saying, you guys are rigging elections and stuff. I mean, he's a true revolutionary. And you go too far right, it's anarchy. You go left, what do you see? You see socialism. What Bernie Sanders wants to put in is government takeover of corporations. The rich people aren't paying enough. You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. We need social programs to help the poor. But how do they get those social programs? They take over the health industry. Don't get me wrong, health industry in America sucks right now. I'm not a fan of it. I think there's huge flaws. There's huge corporate flaws. There's huge government flaws. And there's huge pharmaceutical company flaws for sure. And I would like to see Trump try to fix that before we go full socialist. But what do socialists want to do with healthcare? They say, that's bad. I'm going to take full control of the health industry. It's going to be a total healthcare monopoly run by the government. Do you see, even if you're a progressive or socialist, do you see at least how that could possibly be a little bit of a concern? The United States government taking control of the entire health industry. Oh, free education. Yeah, okay. Total government control of education. No. Charter schools are bad. Trump's racist for wanting charter schools. Let's just give out free education that's government sanctioned. Do you see how that could be a little bit bad? Do you see how that could be a little bit brainwashy? Even more so than school already is. Let's be honest. School is already sanctioned so much. There's not a lot of freedom there anyway. It's a very controlled system, the school structure. But do you see how socialism turns into communism and a dictatorship almost every time? Literally, even Cornel West, he is a Princeton University professor and a huge Democratic Socialist fan. He's even admitted on Tucker Carlson that democratic socialism and socialism has literally never worked. Socialism has not once worked. It's never worked because ideologically it sounds good. It sounds amazing. Yeah, let's take the money from the rich people. But Hitler was a socialist. Yes, I'm not saying all socialists are Hitler. I'm not pulling oh my God, everyone who disagrees with Hitler. It's just a fact. That's what Nazi stands for, National Socialist. And his policy was socialist mixed in with like extremist nationalist views. Mussolini, that's how they get control. You don't do it by cutting regulations and letting corporations run rampant, go right wing. You do it by taking control of all of that stuff. And that's why I fight against left-wing ideology now, because overtaxing the people and controlling the health industry that's already a total scam and a dupe and a setup doesn't actually help your health. Why would I want government to control the whole thing and then forcefully make me pay for it? That's what Obamacare was. I see Jimmy Dore all the time on his show say, oh, Obamacare's right-wing health care. It's Romney care. I don't know if Mitt Romney created it. Maybe he created it because he's a fake Republican like John McCain. But Romney care and Obamacare, that's not right-wing. That's left-wing. That's socialist. It's not full socialist. It's like the worst of both worlds. That's why everyone hates it now. It's a socialist ideology of you pay, we're going to help all the poor people, but if you don't want to pay, you have to pay. There's no choice. Bernie Sanders would be more socialist. So I think Jimmy Dore, very dishonest when he says that it's a right-wing healthcare. No, Obamacare is socialist healthcare, because if I didn't want to pay during Trump, regardless of what you say about his healthcare, if I don't want to pay for the healthcare, I don't have to. Donald Trump got rid of the individual mandate. So if I don't want healthcare and I don't want to spend $3,000 a year for healthcare that doesn't work, then I don't have to. I get to save $3,000, spend it on my health. I could buy ginger and turmeric and garlic and massages and physical therapy with the money that I could never use instead of the government stealing it from me. During Obama's administration, he made it impossible to not pay. It was a total scam and a dupe. I don't care what the name of it was. It was socialist. It was left-wing healthcare. Even if Mitt Romney came up with it, I'm sure he did because he's probably a phony Republican. But it was a mandate where if you don't pay, they take 2, 3, 4, 5% of your paycheck. So it's like either pay $5,000 a year or pay $10,000 a year. There was no way to not pay. That's socialism. They take your money. They steal your stuff. And when it came to Hitler, he literally confiscated property and took it to an extreme. You see that happening in South Africa too on the left wing. They're taking land from white farmers and farms from white farmers and redistributing it to other people. They're stealing property from people. The government's stealing property because they can do it better. That's what Hitler thought. I can do it better. That's what Bernie thinks. I'm not saying Bernie's Hitler. Don't get me wrong, but that's his philosophy is the free market's not working. You're not doing it right. You're not spending your taxes right. You're not helping people enough. I'm going to do it. The government's going to do it for you. I get it. I don't think corporations are great. I don't think billionaires are great. I don't think capitalism is flawless and perfect. But socialism is how a lot of dictators rose. It's not hard to see why when you see how they seize control of all property, all private industry, health industry, education, media. I mean, communist China, they're doing that. So it's not hard to see how communism and socialism on the left. And be very, very cautious to do that stuff because when have you ever seen the United States government, just to be real, how many times have they really flawlessly executed, let's give the entire health industry to them and I'm sure it's just going to be booming. And then we'll let tens of millions of people come here and then the prices won't go up. Of course they're going to go up. I mean, I don't care what study the Koch brothers or Bernie Sanders do. It's just basic economics and math. Of course it's going to go up. You let tens of millions of people come in and, have a limited amount of doctors, and then you have anybody that has healthcare at any time. Of course, the quality is going to go down. The price is going to go up. Under Obama, every year, 200% up, 200% increase, 200% increase. For me, 200, 300% increase every single year. And he said it wasn't going to go up. It went up. Of course, it's not, the whole ideology of it is a failed ideology. And what I dislike about it, I'm on a big side ramp, what I dislike about it the most is that it doesn't address the root causes of health. You have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, and, governmental programs. Our whole life during the 90s, they told you to drink milk and eat bread. Oh, that's going to make you real healthy. The food pyramid. Bread. Eat bread 8 times a day and drink milk 7 times a day. Milk is an inflammatory. I'm sure it has calcium in it that helps your bones, but it inflames your throat. It inflames every part of your body. Milk is not meant to drink once or twice or 3 times a day. I don't think it is. Maybe your body can handle it, but milk is not that healthy. They told us it was. Bread is certainly not healthy. There's a whole keto diet now of not eating carbs. The last 2 years, I've been more healthy than I've ever been from not eating bread and drinking milk. That's literally my diet. The 2 things that they told you to drink and eat the most, I'm doing the opposite and I'm thriving. I have so much energy and I'm not getting sick as much. I have no strep throat like I had 4, 5, 6, 7 times in 1 year. I mean, I'm healthier than ever because I'm not listening to the food pyramid. And you're saying you want to put the entire health industry into the hands of the federal government, the whole thing, and steal people's money so I can't help myself holistically. I can't go get massages or physical therapy or take a vacation so I'm not drowning myself in stress. You want to take my tax dollars to forcefully put me into the government's health program, Bernie Sanders? You've got to be kidding me, you total fraud. Everything you say is a fraud. It's not hard. People can tell now you're a fraud. You're lying about Russia. You're lying about pretty much everything. You don't care. Oh, voter suppression. I don't want IDs. Give me a break, bro. Don't take my money. Don't take my taxes. And don't forcefully shove me into a healthcare system I don't want to be a part of paying. I don't want to pay it because it doesn't actually help my health. If something drastic happens, of course it'll help my health. I'm not anti-Western medicine. I'm not anti-health. American doctors are great in many ways. God bless all the good doctors. I'm not like a super holistic person, but to be honest, if you stop the root cause of all the bad health, why is America the most unhealthy country as far as We're the most obese country. We have the most heart disease. We have the most pharmacy deaths. Because they're giving you pills that are killing you. They're literally shoving you and telling you to eat things that aren't good. And then Bernie Sanders wants to come along. Oh, let me take all your money and then you can go to see the doctor. Well, I don't want to see the doctor and I don't have to see the doctor if I take care of myself. If you don't steal my money, Bernie Sanders, I don't need to go to the doctors 20 times a year. But if you steal all my money and stress me out and do all this dumb stuff, then yeah, I'm going to have to go to the doctors. It's going to take 6, 7, 8 months to go. Yes, it's going to go up. Yes, it's going to rise. Yes, quality is going to go down just like it has done. There's a lot of uninspired doctors because it's like a factory farm. It's just like people coming in like cows and sheep. I'm not for it. That was a huge, huge rant because I'm very passionate about healthcare and I really don't like the industry. But on that note, this is what Death of a Nation is about. And that's my own little touch on it. But Dinesh D Souza is explaining a lot of the dictators of the world, from the Mussolinis to the Hitlers, they used a lot of left-wing ideology. And even the media, I mean, you follow the agenda of the media, the mass media, the social media. They're almost word for word following Joseph Goebbels, the minister of propaganda from Nazi Germany. They're almost following his book to the T, to the core. It's like if you make a lie big enough, people will believe it. They knew they were lying. Hitler knew he was lying about a lot of things. Joseph Goebbels knew he was lying about a lot of things. It's not like they thought they were telling the truth about certain things. They just knew how to work it. They said, if you tell a lie 10,000 times, people will think it's the truth. Like, that's their strategy. It's just like the news. They're talking about Russia collusion. Trump colluded with Russia. There's literally no evidence that happened. And they will tell you a bunch of times in the little footnote, because they're like, we can't really lie, but if we masquerade a lie 10,000 times, you got people marching in the streets saying Trump's working with Putin, and there's no evidence. Why is that? Because they're literally following minister propaganda tactics of lying so much that people believe it. I mean, it's ridiculous. So it's hard not to see the similarities between the thought speech, between the suppression. You know, a lot of these left-wing socialist / overly nationalist governments were infiltrating the education system. There was no way to disagree. If you disagreed with Hitler, they wouldn't let you live. If you disagree with the left-wing media and the Democrats, they don't want you to have a platform. You're kicked off Facebook, you're censored, you're shadow banned. It's hard. How come you can't win if I'm so bad and Alex Jones is so bad and Donald Trump is so bad and all these people are so terrible? Why can't you win with an argument? Why do you have to censor and silence us? Give me the worst person you could find. Give me the most terrible person, the fakest person. I'm not going to take his platform. Let him lie. That's the best platform. Yeah, let him lie. I'll break down systemically why he's telling a lie. And I'll tell you why he's telling a lie. I don't have to silence them. That's why I say, yeah, let him talk. His talk alone will prove. But they have to do that because they are following these tactics. And that's what Dinesh D Souza is saying in his film. And I felt this way for a year, 2 years. So it's nice to see all the comparisons. It's crazy to see that, Democratic presidents were playing Birth of a Nation, a very racist KKK film that revamped the KKK, was played in the White House of Democratic presidents. And I don't want to ruin one of the best parts of the movie, but Dinesh D Souza sits down with Richard Spencer, the alt-right white nationalist of the right wing, and has the best Richard Spencer interview out yet. He gets him to say things, Richard Spencer telling his truth. Richard Spencer, very famous white nationalist supremacist, hates all people of all color. Maybe doesn't hate them, but wants them to go home, wants Dinesh D Souza to go home. I would probably have to go to Puerto Rico because I'm probably not white enough for him. I want to ask him. I'll be like, am I white enough to stay in your white America, or am I too Spanish? Would you send me home? I'm just curious. But he told Dinesh D Souza in the film, he's like, I don't want you to stay, you're Indian. He is literally racist, but it's a great interview he has, and he gets Richard Spencer to say something and miss something. Like I said, I don't want to ruin it, but it's like, wow, when this drops, I got Dinesh D Souza's permission. He said I can upload it and help it go viral because it's like, it's an eye-opening thing that shatters the whole mainstream narrative about Richard Spencer being a right-wing ideologist, because a lot of his views line up with the left wing. It's just he's an extremist version, and he doesn't agree with a lot of conservatives. He just never really gets challenged. So overall, I say it's a great film. It shows the similarities between fascism, Nazism, and like I said, it's not a total, he's not saying it's completely accurate. It can be a little dramatic at times, but it's hard to say as somebody who's been, it froze a little bit. It's hard to say with someone who's been left-leaning my whole life. I've always been into liberal values. I've always thought Republicans were terrible. It's hard to not see the similarities between these fascistic regimes and the people who claim to be fighting fascism. And he lays it all out there. He's very into history. And it's not hard to see. It's not hard to see how the parties didn't flip. It's not hard to see how Democrats were the founders of the KKK and that the Democratic Party were fighting against Abraham Lincoln. It's not hard to see because I think things have changed. I think people have grown. I'm not a huge fan of Republicans. I think they were annoying at a certain point. I think they don't communicate well. And to be honest, I don't agree with every single thing that every Republican does. I think there's a lot of fake Republicans out there who need to be replaced by better Republicans, just like Democrats need to be replaced by better Democrats. But the ideology behind the right wing and what Dinesh D Souza is trying to say, which I've been saying for a year too, I mean, this is just in a film that's beautifully put. The right-wing ideology is more freedom, more personal liberties, lower taxes, and more free market. The left wing is government control. That's the real scale. And they masquerade it all with race, sex, religion, and gender to not have a real discussion about what's going on. And it's not hard to see why in South Africa now, they're reminiscent of fascistic regimes where they're literally confiscating property from certain South Americans and giving it to other people. That's the left-wing ideology. So Dinesh's film, very great, based off his 2 books. They're trying to explain to people you might have been duped at a certain point because the Republicans were never the racist party. The Democratic Party was the racist party, according to Dinesh. The parties never flipped. And if you watch a lot of the legislation and unfolding strategies of the fascistic regimes, they match almost in line with the progressive Democrat regime. And it's really not hard to see why. I'm going to be real. I know a lot of people might get upset. I'm doing the movie review, so I'm reviewing his movie, sprinkling in my own stuff. But it's not hard to see. I know I'm not saying it's bad. I'm pro-environment. I'm pro-freedom. I'm pro-LGBT. Do what you want to do. Love who you want to love. I'm anti-racism. I'm anti, segregation or discrimination. I want good people to live here. And I will say, similar to Dinesh D Souza, who's an Indian immigrant, I talk to immigrants all the time, and almost every single immigrant I talk to doesn't sound like the media, doesn't sound like liberals, and doesn't sound like progressive socialists, because every immigrant who came here loves this country for the most part. Why else would they come here? Why else would they spend money and time and try to get their green card? They're proud to be an American. Not overly proud, because pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, but I'm finally, for the first time in my life, I used to really dislike America. I used to hate America because I was brought up to feel that way. I was indoctrinated and I was shown its flaws, and I saw its flaws, and I was not proud. I'm proud for the first time in my life to be an American because I see that our system's finally working, finally flipping, and we have somebody that's willing to call out the BS on the left and the right and really bring back the freedom that we were founded on. And that was also in the movie too. I want to add that, and I knew this as well. I read it in a book. I'd mentioned it a few months ago, but the founding fathers were not super racist and super slavery. Like, oh, they were all slave owners. That's the whole, narrative. But there's quotes from George Washington, all of them. They knew slavery was on its way out. They thought slavery should end. None of their philosophies were built on slavery, but when they founded America, slavery was all over the world. That's the way the world worked. They didn't invent slavery or found slavery. They actually had said numerous times that they knew slavery was on the way out, and they were planning for it to collapse. And eventually, under Abraham Lincoln, it did collapse. So it's not like they were just these crazy people. Oh my God, we got to go left wing because the right wing's so crazy. No, I'm finally proud because, like immigrants, who spent thousands of dollars to get here, who got a green card, who came from Iran. I talked to Iranians, I talked to Mexicans, I talked to Guatemalans, I talked to Argentinians, I talked to, people from Canada, I talked to people from Europe, I talked to people from Africa. I hear, and I very rarely hear the hate that I hear from American-born citizens, because if you come from Venezuela, or you left Venezuela, or you left, yes, it's a beautiful place, yes, there's beautiful people there, but you know what it's like to live in a place with no freedom and no economy. Everybody from Iran, well, not everybody, but the couple people I've spoken to, they're happy to be here. I'm like, what do you think about Iran? It's cool, but there's no freedom. Oh, yeah, Trump's right, there's no freedom. If you're a woman, there's no freedom. If you're a guy, there's still not that much freedom. So it's like, they're grateful to be here, and they're not trying to just sabotage the whole system out of so much pure hate. And they know a lot of times that over government regulations and, too much government input and too high of taxes, it never ends well. So it's like real immigrants a lot of times feel the way Dinesh D Souza does. And, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is better than the mainstream media. They're giving it like a 1 out of 5. I don't like to be a real critic. I don't like little like jabs and stuff, but I'll say if I'm going to do an honest movie critique, I say the only negative critique is like maybe things dragged on a little too long at certain points. That's like my little like low energy crab thing. If I was like a real critic, I'm like, it's a 3. Nah, I think it was great, 4.5 out of 5. But I do think parts dragged on too long. But I will say it might just be because I have like extreme attention problems. I'm like all over the place, so it's hard for me to focus sometimes, to be real. So it could be that. But overall, I liked it. It's going to bring up some important discussions, and it's already happening. With these movements and whatnot of people walking away and telling their stories. Once like a lot of people realize that they look at the history of the Democratic Party, they look at the president of the Democratic Party, and especially the last year and a half of all the media deception and all of the trickery against Bernie Sanders and as well as Donald Trump, it's hard not to see the similarities, and it's scaring a lot of people away because it's like, I'm liberal, but I'm not that kind of liberal. I'm not a fascist. I'm not going to put out a bill saying affordable health care and then have it not be affordable, free college, but it's not really free, universal health care, but it has nothing to do with the universe. It's socialist health care. They just don't want to call it that because it's not popular. So I get these labels, but when you look at the core of what's been going on, there's a lot of deception. A lot of people are upside down. I use the food pyramid as an example, because the food pyramid was a total lie. They told you to eat bread and milk, and those are the 2 worst things probably to eat. So it's like, it's hard for a lot of people to fathom this stuff. There's no way they could have flipped reality on me, but they did it in so many ways. They did it in the health industry. They did it in the food industry. And the more I see films like Dinesh D Souza's and really study history, I'm starting to think they did it with history too. They almost inverted it completely. And that's frightening because certain parts of history, you don't want there to be deception, but I've never been a fan of history. Just to wrap it up, to be honest, because I know history was written by the victors. So you go back to the 1500s, who wrote history? Do you think it was the poor guy in the corner trying to tell the truth? No, it was probably the insane dictator, super alpha male, like maybe guy with, small body parts that needed to hypercompensate for it. So he started killing a bunch of people. Those are probably the people who wrote history. So it's like, do I believe what I read about 1400s and 1500s? To be honest, it's not even Dinesh D Souza as far as like, because some people will be like, oh, anomaly, Dinesh is lying. I'm not saying that he is. I think his video is very credible, but I'm not a big history believer anyway, because the victor wrote history and people burned books. Hitler burned books. Stalin probably burned books. You go back in history, every dictator that wanted to rewrite history burned books. So do I think I'm reading, the Aztecs played this sport and danced in this circle? Are you sure? How do you know that? Because you saw it on a cave painting, or you read something that some, rich, wealthy guy wrote in the 1950s? I'm not really buying large parts of history anyway. And especially when it comes to the Democratic and Republican Party, it becomes clear and clear and clear and clear that one party is, corrupt as well. I think the Republican Party's been ridiculously corrupted. I think it's starting to get back to it, but I think they've run on the premise of like free market and, capitalism and low taxes and personal liberties. That's been their stance for a while. Although, like I said, I think they've been ridiculously corrupted and there's a lot of phonies there. But the Democratic Party, if you go back to the, founding fathers and the founders of the Democratic Party and the opposition of, Abe Lincoln, well, I don't know that it was the Democratic Party at that point. I think that took a while to create. But the opposition has always been very, very similar. There's been a lot of deception, a lot of labeling, always calling people racist and sexist and negative, and, instead of winning with valid arguments, just totally duping people with deception. And I think that time has really ended. I think it's over. I think the internet, as well with a lot of brave people on the left and the right, have brought forth a new place where that's not working. The deception is not working, and every great empire has failed. So that's to wrap it up. The death of the nation is talking about. Dinesh says, Rome empires failed. The German Empire failed. The Soviet Union failed. Every great empire has fallen. So America is facing life or death. Regardless of which way you look at it or think that it's going to fail or not, no great nation has really ever lasted forever. So we're at a peak pinnacle point of the United States history where it's like we could fail or we could succeed. So we have to be very smart about what direction that we go in. And one wrong move can really end, America as we know it. And you could see it now. We're at a pivotal point, and I hope that everybody stays informed, educated, loves their country, because, a lot of the things that we have are not guaranteed. And you might see, you don't know what you have till it's gone. So I like to be critical. I like to critique sometimes, I guess you would say, but most importantly, I like to be grateful and appreciative, because a lot of the things that we do have, we don't even know what it would be like to not have without. And we take so much for granted. And overall, looking at history, looking at the present, looking at the last 10, 15 years, you'll find a lot of lies wrapped in candy coating, and you'll find a lot of truths that are not so palatable, but might be better for your health and better for your wealth and better for the future. So Death of a Nation, good movie, interesting concept. I like that Dinesh is pushing that, and I would love to see debates. Instead of trying to censor and silence and call names, somebody, the greatest person on the planet who disagrees with Dinesh, to have a dialogue, have a debate with him, and prove why you think the parties did switch, or why you think that the racism comes from the one side or the other. That's all I ask for, and hopefully that will continue. We need a balance, like someone said, and we definitely need not as much censorship. So I want to end on that note. Alex Jones is being kicked off Facebook. Whether you agree or disagree, think he's extreme. The censorship and the silencing is happening to Republicans on Twitter. Even if you don't like Republicans, I would think it's pretty creepy if you have one side of the political debate being shadow banned on Twitter, and there's not a single Democrat that was doing the same. And then Twitter says, oh, we're sorry, we're going to hire a bunch of extremely liberal people to enforce it. It's like, at what point does this, like Dinesh said, really mirror fascistic countries? I mean, freedom of speech is key. If you can't win by argument, who are you kidding? And they're doing this today. I'm not saying it's as extreme as it was before. I'm not saying people are out killing each other, but they're doing the same sort of censorship tactics today, not yesterday, not maybe it'll happen. It is literally happening now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Every part of those websites are rigged against one side of the debate. And then those are the people tearing down the statues. Oh, no, that's not the real history. Let's tear down that statue and let's change, they're changing the dictionary. I mean, we're living in the Twilight Zone. It's happening. So I stand up for people on the left and the right, conspiracy theorists or not, speak your piece. And I don't like to see anyone censored. So speaking of Death of a Nation, just to wrap it up, it is happening now. The censorship, the silencing, the fascistic tactics, whether you want to agree with the policies or not. So it's very, very important. It's got me all hyped up, but I'm already hyped up every day because I stopped listening to the food pyramid, which was probably destroying my energy and health. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you joining. As always, have an amazing week. I'll be back tomorrow, possibly. New videos. Got this shirt. It says, I'm not a Russian bot, okay? This is from Brandon, the Walk Away Movement. So you don't have to agree with me, but it's important that you know that I am not a Russian bot working for Vladimir Putin. I'm an American citizen, and what I say echoes the voices of tens of millions of American citizens, tens of millions of immigrants from Iran, from Puerto Rico, from, Puerto Rico wouldn't be an immigrant because it's the U.S., from Mexico, from South America. Every immigrant I talk to, they don't sound like the immigrants on the news because they have a lot of love for this country and they have a lot of appreciation, which is missing. So don't silence me, don't censor me, and most importantly, stop calling me a Russian bot. All right, have a good day, guys. I'll be back.